It was supposed to be a peaceful Sunday. Just a drive. Windows down. Music low. Derek Matthews had promised his kids ice cream after church. His wife, Tanisha, sat beside him in the passenger seat, flipping through photos on her phone from the service earlier that morning. In the back, Malik and Zoe, ages 10 and 7, were arguing over what flavor they'd get. Chocolate, obviously. No, strawberry. The car. A 2021 silver Lexus sedan. Clean. Polished. Just 2 years old. Bought with sweat, savings, and more overtime hours than Derek cared to count. But as they cruised through the wealthy neighborhood of Maplewood Hills, everything changed. At first, Derek didn't think much of the patrol car behind them. Just another cruiser. Just another cop. But the way it followed, block after block, never turning, never slowing down. He felt it. That familiar unease. Tanisha noticed too. Her eyes met his. "Don't react," she whispered. "I know," he said quietly. "I see them." He clicked the turn signal. Right on Parkside Avenue. The cruiser followed. Another right onto Birch Lane. Still behind. Then the red and blue lights flashed. Zoe jumped. "Daddy, why are they stopping us?" Malik looked out the back window. "Did you do something?" "No, baby," Derek said, pulling the car to the side of the road. "I didn't do anything." Tanisha's hands trembled. "License, registration, do you have everything?" "Of course," he said, pulling his wallet from the center console. He kept it visible, slow movements only. No surprises. The officer approached slowly. White. Mid-40s. Sunglasses on. Hand resting near his holster. Behind him, a second officer flanked the passenger side. Also white. Younger. Lean. Eyes sharp. Derek rolled down the window. "Good afternoon, officer." "License and registration," the first cop said flatly. "Can I ask why I was pulled over, sir?" "You have tinted windows." Derek blinked. "Sir, the tint is legal. Factory standard. You can check the specs." "License and registration," the officer repeated, louder this time. Derek complied. Handed over the documents. Said nothing else. Tanisha sat frozen. The second officer peered into the car, eyes scanning the kids, the seats, the floorboards. "What's in the glove compartment, ma'am?" he asked. "Just the manual," she replied. "Open it slowly." She did. The officer didn't even glance at it before walking around to the trunk. "What is going on?" Derek muttered. The first officer stared at him. "Where are you heading?" "Just out for ice cream. We were at church this morning." "In Maplewood Hills," the officer said, raising an eyebrow. "Is that a problem?" "No," the officer said, though his tone said otherwise. The second officer called out, "Sir, step out of the vehicle." Derek's heart dropped. "Why?" he asked. "We need to ask you a few questions." "I haven't done anything wrong." "Sir, step out now." Tanisha's hand gripped Derek's. "It's okay," he whispered. "Stay with the kids." He opened the door and stepped out, hands visible. The officer motioned him toward the back of the car. "Do you live around here?" he asked. "No," Derek replied. "We live in Riverdale. 5 miles south." The officer nodded slowly, as if confirming a suspicion. "And this car, is it yours?" "Yes." "You sure?" Derek stared at him. "You want to run the plates?" he asked. "Or check the VIN?" The officer smirked. "We already did. Just making sure." The first officer approached again. "Mind if we search the car?" "Yes, I do." You don't have probable cause. The officers exchanged glances. Sir, the younger one said, you're making this more difficult than it needs to be. I'm asserting my rights. They didn't like that. The kids were crying now. Malik leaned forward, trying to see his dad. Zoe had buried her face in Tanisha's lap. A neighbor came out on their porch across the street, phone in hand. Recording. Another curtain twitched in a nearby window. The tension thickened. Then came a voice. Authoritative. Calm. Firm. What's going on here, officers? Everyone turned. It was a tall man in a blue polo shirt and khakis. Older. White. Confident stride. I'm Captain Lewis. I live 2 doors down. I've known this man since he moved to the area. He works at the hospital with my wife. The officers stiffened. Is that right? The first one said. Yes, Lewis replied. And unless you have actual cause, I'd suggest you let this family enjoy their Sunday. The air was thick with silence. The officers stood motionless, caught off guard by Captain Lewis's calm authority. Their earlier bravado wavered as they glanced at each other, unsure of how to respond. I'm just asking, the younger officer muttered. Well, I'm just telling you, Lewis replied evenly, this man is a father, a neighbor, and a hardworking professional. If this stop isn't based on something real, then it needs to end now. Derek stood there, heart pounding, hands still raised slightly, years of conditioning telling him not to move too fast, not to speak too loudly, not to look too confident. I didn't mean to cause a scene, Derek said quietly, looking down. You didn't, Lewis said firmly. They did. The first officer cleared his throat, shifting awkwardly on his feet. We just had a report, about a suspicious vehicle in the area. Suspicious how? Lewis pressed. Because it was clean. Because it was new. Or because a black family was inside. Neither officer answered. Lewis took a slow step forward. You know what the real problem is, he said. You're making people afraid to just exist. You're turning a Sunday drive into a trauma. Zoe's cries echoed from the car. Malik opened the door slightly. Dad? I'm okay, buddy, Derek called back. Stay with your mom. Tanisha, shaken, hugged the kids close. She wiped away tears but kept her chin high. I've got everything recorded, said the neighbor from across the street, phone still raised. Every word. The older officer turned back to Derek. You're free to go. Derek didn't move. You sure? He asked. The officer gave a slight nod, avoiding eye contact. Derek walked slowly back to the car, every step heavy with disbelief. He opened the driver's side door and sat, hands gripping the wheel. For a moment, he didn't speak. Then he turned to Tanisha. You okay? She nodded slowly, though her eyes were still wide. You? He exhaled deeply. Not sure. They sat in silence for a moment as the officers walked back to their cruiser. Lewis stayed near, arms crossed, watching them go. Thank you, Derek said quietly. Lewis leaned down, his voice low but steady. I wish I didn't have to step in. I wish they hadn't stopped you at all. But I couldn't stand by. Derek nodded, words caught in his throat. Your kids were watching, Lewis added. They'll remember this day forever. Make sure they remember who their father was in that moment. The car was quiet as they pulled back onto the road. But the energy had changed. The laughter was gone. The ice cream shop now felt like an afterthought. Zoe still clung to her mom's arm. Malik stared out the window, jaw tight. They thought you stole the car, he muttered. Derek said nothing. Just because you're black, Malik added. Yeah, Derek said finally. Sometimes that's all it takes. That's messed up. It is. They drove for a few minutes before Tanisha spoke. Maybe we should tell someone. File a complaint. Derek nodded. We will. But not today. Why not? Because right now, he said, we just need to show our kids that we're okay. That this doesn't get to define us. At the next stoplight, Derek looked at Malik through the rearview mirror. You hear me, son? We don't let their fear become our fear. Malik didn't respond right away. Then, quietly, but it's hard not to be scared. I know, Derek said. But being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you don't let it stop you. They reached the ice cream shop. Tanisha forced a smile. Let's go inside, huh? Zoe nodded. Inside, the smell of waffle cones and fudge filled the air. The bright colors, the cheerful music, it all felt surreal. But for a few minutes, they pretended. They ordered cones. They picked sprinkles. They found a booth by the window. Derek sat back, watching his family. Watching them laugh, slowly, cautiously. Rebuilding. An older couple at the counter recognized him. Hey. Dr. Matthews, right? You helped my brother after his surgery. He smiled politely. I remember. How's he doing? Much better. You're a good man. Derek nodded. Appreciate it. He turned back to his kids. They were talking about school now. About some silly TikTok trend. And just like that, normalcy tried to return. But the weight of what had happened still lingered. Later that evening, Derek stood in his driveway, staring at the car. The Lexus. The car that had triggered so much. Louis walked over, holding a glass of iced tea. I've been thinking, he said. What happened today, people need to hear about it. People need to see it. I'm not trying to be a headline, Derek replied. You already are, Louis said. You just don't know it yet. That night, Derek couldn't sleep. He sat in the living room long after the kids had gone to bed, the TV flickering silently, casting shadows on the walls. Tanisha came in, wrapped in a blanket, and sat beside him on the couch. You okay? She asked. Derek nodded, but his eyes said otherwise. It just keeps playing in my head, he whispered. Over and over. Tanisha rested her head on his shoulder. I know. I keep thinking, what if Louis hadn't been there? What if that officer reached for his gun instead of his radio? Tanisha didn't answer. Because they both knew, it could have ended differently. So easily. I did everything right, Derek muttered. I was calm. I followed directions. And still it wasn't enough, she finished. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Tanisha said, maybe we do share it. Share what? Our story. Derek turned to her. People need to know this happens, she said. To good men. To good families. We always stay quiet, try to move on, but what if speaking up is what makes it stop? He looked down at his hands. Would anyone even care? Tanisha squeezed his hand. I care. And someone else will too. Maybe a lot of people. The next morning, Derek opened his laptop. He didn't really know what he was doing. He wasn't a public speaker. He wasn't a writer. But he started typing. Just the truth. Line by line. What happened? How it felt. What it meant. No shouting. No accusations. Just reality. Raw and honest. By the time he finished, the sun was up. He hit post and walked away. He didn't check it again for hours. But when he did, it had already been shared hundreds of times. Then thousands. People commented with shock, with support, with anger. Others shared their own stories. I was pulled over just for driving home from church. My dad was arrested for walking our dog at night. I told my son to always keep both hands on the wheel. He's 12. The internet had opened up. Derek's story was no longer just his, it belonged to everyone who had ever felt small, targeted, or afraid for no reason but the color of their skin. News outlets picked it up. Local channels. Then national. Derek was invited to speak on a morning show. He wore a simple navy sweater, his wedding ring polished, his voice steady. "I'm not angry," he told the host. "I'm tired. Tired of being looked at like a threat. Tired of having to teach my son how to survive, instead of just how to live." The clip went viral. He was approached by civil rights groups, by educators, by even some officers, ones who wanted to change the system from the inside. And through it all, Derek kept coming back to one thing. His kids. They were watching. They were learning. Not just how to react, but how to respond. One night, Malik knocked on his dad's office door. "Come in," Derek said. Malik shuffled in, holding a school assignment. "Can I read you something?" Derek nodded. Malik cleared his throat, then began. "My hero is my dad. Because he didn't yell. He didn't fight. He just told the truth. And the truth was powerful enough." Derek blinked, caught off guard. "You wrote that?" Malik shrugged. "Yeah." Derek leaned forward, pulling him into a hug. "You have no idea how much that means." Malik hugged him back. "I'm proud of you, Dad." And just like that, the weight Derek had been carrying all week seemed a little lighter. The family started getting letters, real ones. Handwritten notes from strangers. From a retired veteran in Ohio. From a black mother in Atlanta. From a white teenager in Minnesota who said, "You opened my eyes." Not all messages were kind, of course. There were trolls. People who said, "You're exaggerating." But the support far outweighed the hate. And Derek stayed focused on that. One evening, the mayor of the city invited him to speak at a community event. "We want to talk about real solutions," she said. "And we think your story can lead the conversation." Derek stood at the podium in front of a packed auditorium. He wasn't nervous anymore. "I never asked to be a voice for anything," he began. "I just wanted to get ice cream with my kids. But something happened. And instead of hiding it, we shared it. Because sunlight is the best disinfectant." People nodded. Some wiped away tears. "And maybe," he continued, "if we tell these stories enough, someday they'll stop happening." The applause was thunderous. And somewhere in the crowd, Malik and Zoe beamed. Their dad wasn't just a survivor. He was a teacher. A leader. A light. Months passed. The world didn't change overnight. But something was different. Derek's family still lived in the same house, still went to the same schools, still shopped at the same grocery store. But when they walked in, people saw them differently now. Not as suspects. But as survivors. As a symbol of quiet strength. Malik became something of a local celebrity at school. Teachers asked him to speak in history class. "I just told them what happened," he said to his dad one night. "That's all. I didn't add anything." "You didn't need to," Derek replied. "Truth speaks loud enough." Tanisha started volunteering with a youth outreach program. She helped young girls navigate identity and pride. She used their story to show them that dignity isn't something you earn, it's something you already have. And Derek? He kept writing. Not for fame. Not for clicks. But because once you start telling the truth, it's hard to stop. He wrote about fatherhood. About fear. About hope. One post was titled, "How to Keep Your Hands on the Wheel and Still Hold Your Head High." Another, when they look at you like a problem, be the answer. He didn't try to be a hero. But people started calling him one anyway. Then, one afternoon, Derek received a call. A man introduced himself as Deputy Chief Reynolds from the local police department. "I read your story," he said. "More than once. I think there's a lot we can learn. And a lot we need to fix." Derek listened, cautious. Reynolds continued, "We're reviewing our bias training programs. But that's not enough. We need real conversations. I'd like to invite you to come speak to our officers." Derek paused. "I'm not a cop," he said. "I know," Reynolds replied. "That's exactly why we need to hear from you." So he went. Not to accuse. Not to shame. But to show. To share. The room was quiet as he spoke. Not tense, just still. "I don't hate you," Derek told them. "I just want to get home safely. That's it. That's all any of us want." Some officers nodded. Others looked down. A few stayed after to thank him. "Keep doing this," one whispered. "You're reaching people." It wasn't a revolution. Not yet. But it was a start. One morning, Derek was checking the mail when he found a small envelope with no return address. Inside was a folded sheet of paper. On it, written in uneven handwriting. "Thank you for being brave. I want to be like you when I grow up. Zayden, age 9". Derek held the letter in his hands for a long time. Later that evening, he showed it to Malik. The boy grinned. "That's dope." Derek laughed. "Yeah. It really is." By now, their story had been told and retold. News stations. Podcasts. Even a short documentary. But Derek never let it change who he was. He still walked Zoe to school when she asked. Still grilled burgers on Sundays. Still called his mom every week. Because at the end of the day, he was still just a dad. Still just a man trying to protect his family in a world that didn't always see them fully. But something else had changed too. The department that pulled him over had revised their traffic stop procedures. Officers now wore body cams that couldn't be turned off manually. New recruits received community-based empathy training, not just legal rules, but real-life experiences from people like Derek. And once a month, a civilian panel reviewed all complaints of racial profiling. Small changes. But changes nonetheless. One evening, the family went out for dinner, same old ice cream place. Same time of day. Same route. But this time, no flashing lights. No sirens. Just music playing on the radio and the sound of Malik telling a joke that didn't quite land. They laughed anyway. When they arrived, Zoe ran ahead to the counter. Malik followed, pretending to be too cool for sprinkles but ordering extra anyway. Tanisha and Derek held hands as they walked in. No tension. No fear. Just peace. An elderly woman approached them as they found their table. "Excuse me," she said gently. "Are you the family from the video?" Derek smiled. "That depends which video." The woman chuckled. "The one that made me cry." Tanisha nodded. "That's probably us." The woman placed her hand over her heart. "Thank you for sharing it. It changed how I talk to my grandkids." And then she walked away. Derek sat down, looking around. Same booths. Same light fixtures. Same sticky floors. But everything felt different now. It wasn't about the fame. It wasn't about the apology. It was about something deeper. About reclaiming the space where something painful happened, and filling it with something better. Malik returned to the table, holding 2 cones. "Here, Dad," he said. "I got you your favorite." Derek blinked. "Thanks, son." As he took the cone, He caught his reflection in the window, Tanisha smiling, Zoe bouncing in her seat, Malik leaning back with that familiar smirk. And he realized something. This wasn't just survival. This was joy. This was dignity. This was what justice looks like when it finally catches up with the truth.